Hey guys, my name is Aubrey and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, this is my channel and here we discuss all things business, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and everything in between. I am a lifelong entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience. I've been an entrepreneur my entire career, and with that, I've learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. So my goal with this channel is to help teach people some of the lessons that I've learned over the years and to help guide you in the direction of ultimate success through platforms like Turo, Airbnb, investing, franchising, and so many more. So if that is something that interests you, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It really helps YouTube algorithm, it helps my channel grow, and it of course notifies you whenever new videos are published every Tuesday and Thursday. So let's dig into this week's video. So a couple of weeks ago, I created a reaction video. I'm going to link it right up here. And in that reaction video, I critiqued the video created by a creator who had listed 8 cars on Turo. They were all high-end luxury vehicles. He had 200 rentals and he wasn't able to get a profit from those vehicles on Turo. And that reaction video seemed to be pretty well received. I've heard a lot of good comments and feedback from that video. So I decided that this week I would do something very similar. And so today I'm going to be reacting to the video created by the channel The Meconomist, and the video title is called I Rented My Porsche Out on Turo and This Is What Happened. So I have not watched this video, so let's dig in and see what he has to say and what my comments to that are.
Hi everybody, welcome to Meconomist. So today I'm going to be talking about my Porsche Cayman and the most recent story of what happened to it when I rented it out on Turo. And it's a great platform. I've enjoyed using it for a couple years now, and I've rented out my Porsche 3 times, and I've rented other people's cars once already using the app. Out of those 3 times that I've rented my car out, 2 of them have been less than optimal situations. So I don't want to say anything negative about the app because so far the app has been fine. I haven't had any problems with Turo itself. It's more been the customers and the situations that have arisen when I've rented my Cayman out.
So my initial reaction to this video, just by being 1 minute into it, is the fact that he's renting out a Porsche. And so far with like this really basic introduction to this video, I feel like this guy is going to probably be pretty reasonable. He doesn't seem like he's placing a whole lot of blame on Turo, which I have a lot of respect for. But I am definitely biased when it comes to renting out high-end luxury vehicles, especially something like a Porsche, on Turo, because I just think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I don't have any nice cars on Turo, so I am obviously pretty biased when it comes to this, but I'm just a firm believer, and I experienced this with my Mercedes that I used to have on Turo, that anybody who's renting a high-end luxury vehicle on Turo is doing so because they can't afford to buy one. And I just feel like if somebody needs to experience a high-end luxury vehicle but they can't afford to purchase it, I personally feel like it's a disaster waiting to happen. And I think the only real exception would be for people who, for example, this happens with my Jeep all the time, people who rent my Jeep because they want to see if they like it because they're thinking about purchasing one themselves. And I've heard of a lot of people doing this as well with Teslas, is they'll rent Teslas because they are looking at buying a Tesla and they want to see if they like it. I think really that's the only good reason why people would rent a high-end luxury vehicle, is to see if they like it for themselves because they're thinking of purchasing one. But I think so often whenever people rent one, it's because they can't afford to own one and they want to experience the thrill of driving a Porsche. And I think that that's when bad things happen.
So after the first time that I rented my Cayman out, it was great. Nothing went wrong, perfectly normal, awesome. Then I rented out a second time, had a bad experience. It's too long of a story to go into this video, so I'll do that one in a different video. Third time, this most recent time, seemed like a good experience. Car came back, but had over $2,000 worth of damage to it.
So he says that the car came back, it was his third rental with his Porsche, and it had over $2,000 worth of damage to it. That's the problem with renting out things like Porsches on Turo, is because it doesn't take a whole lot of damage to cause $2,000 worth of damage. It's just like, I have a number of cars that are very basic cars, and if one of my cars come back with $2,000 worth of damage, that's a lot of damage for that type of car. It's typically body damage. It's like panels are dented. And I, in my experience with Turo, I've dealt with a lot of claims. And I've only had a couple of claims in my Turo career that got even close to $2,000 worth of damage. And that's the problem with a Porsche, is that you deal with a couple of scratches, a couple of dings, and that's $2,000 like that. It really adds up quickly on cars that are like a Porsche and comparable to a Porsche.
So after my first bad experience, I decided I was going to be a little bit more selective with what customers I allowed to rent out my Porsche. So what I did is I raised the price to something that's definitely above market value in terms of other Caymans on the app and stuff like that. And I figured that way I would just weed out all the really lowball kind of, not the customers that you want. I really wanted to weed them out right off the bat, not even have them try.
So he says that he wanted to kind of weed out some of the bad customers by raising the price. And I think that this is a good tactic. I mean, I've heard of people doing this in the past. I know that I would do it sometimes with my Mercedes, but I go back to the whole thing of if people, the fact of the matter is people who abuse your cars, they're most likely not the most responsible people, and that probably also carries over to financial responsibility as well. If you're somebody who is prone to abuse the crap out of a rental car, you're probably also not somebody who's prone to really care about the price of that rental car, and I don't think that raising your prices 20% is going to make a huge difference when weeding out these bad apples, especially because bad apples can hide in plain sight, and somebody can appear really normal, but then whenever they take your car, they can come out to be psychos. And so I agree with his tactic, and I'm not criticizing him. I'm just kind of pointing out a flaw in his thought process.
Then I made sure that I would check everybody's reviews and only rent out to people who have perfect reviews. So a couple weeks ago, this guy requests my Cayman for the weekend, said it was his birthday, looked at his reviews, 5-star reviews across the board, good reviews from previous people who had rented their car to him, including someone who had rented him an F-Type. So I figured, all right, this guy respects nice sports cars, and he's driven something that's even more expensive and faster than mine, so he knows what he's doing. So I accepted it. He was going to pick up the car at 8 p.m. on a Friday, which I normally wouldn't do because I don't like meeting strangers in the dark. But in this case, I met him in the most well-lit place that's very public, close to where I live, but not so close that he would know exactly where I live. He shows up in a truck, meets me, his ID checks out, seems like a really nice guy. He saw that I was wearing a Ford jacket, and so he showed me his Ford Bronco that he has, and it's been kept in perfect condition, and it's a manual, so I knew that he could drive a manual and wasn't going to ruin my clutch.
So I have, I guess, a couple of comments. One is he just said that the Porsche is a manual, which I am just such a firm believer in I'm such a firm believer in not renting out high-end luxury vehicles on Turo, but I'm even more a believer in the fact that you should not rent out manual cars on Turo. Because of the fact that the components that go into a manual car, you can't document those every time between trips. I mean, you can't take a photo of the clutch every time the car goes out on a trip, and it is definitely possible to destroy a clutch in a car in a matter of days or weeks if the renter rents out your car and doesn't know how to properly drive it. I just think that you are putting yourself at such unnecessary risk by renting out a manual car. I think it's I think it's an even worse idea than renting out a high-end luxury vehicle. The other comment that I have is just all of his precautions that he takes with Turo. It is like meeting the person in person, which is fine. I mean, doing in-person key exchanges is super common in the Turo world, so I can understand where he's coming from, but like vetting out each renter that wants to rent your car, raising your prices so that only good people rent your car, like driving to a Walmart parking lot so that this guy can meet you in person, but you don't want to meet at his house. I just think that there is a point in time where it becomes no longer worth it. Like, I don't and I know of a lot of people that do this, that rent out their cars on Turo as a hobby, or they buy a car that they might not be able to afford on their own, so they buy it and then they rent it out on Turo to offset the costs and the payments of that car. And I understand the thought process behind that. Like, I get it, but I just don't really agree with it. I think that I think that you should either go into Turo as a business and with a business mindset, or you should just not go in it at all. I think that if you are going to be vetting every single person that rents out your car, if you're going to be meeting every single person in person, if you're going to be like driving to a Walmart to meet them, and if you're going to be taking all of these steps in order to rent out your car for a few days, it just really becomes no longer worth it. And I think that it becomes too hard and too unsustainable. Is the goal of a business is to be able to have it operating all the time, whether or not you're there. And I just think that this way of doing it is so counterproductive to that you're better off just keeping your Porsche. Like, if your Porsche is that important to you, don't rent it out on Turo and just keep it for yourself and enjoy it yourself. But I think to rent out your car on Turo and then jump through all of these hoops in order to avoid unnecessary damage to your car, I just think that it's ultimately not worth it. Just keep your car yourself and enjoy it. Don't even bother renting.
And so I gave him the keys and took photos of everything, and off he went. So he was going to return the car to me on Sunday. He was being very communicative, texting me back when I said, hey, how's it going? He texted me saying, hey, it looks like the tire pressure's low. I said, don't worry about it. The TPMS is broken. And then he requests an extra day. So I figured, hey, he must be really enjoying the car. It's fine for him to return it to me on Monday. I can move my work schedule around a little bit, no problem. I did ask him to return it at 7 instead of 8 p.m. just so that I could see it in daylight and make sure everything was all good. Monday rolls around. I haven't heard from him in about 24 hours, so I text him, hey, we still good to meet up at 7? He said, yeah, no problem. Starting to get closer to 7, haven't heard from him again. I texted him, hey, where you at? He said that he's running a little bit late. Bad traffic. Okay, fair enough. It's Houston. I get it. Traffic sucks. So 7 p.m. rolls around and he's still not there, and so I text him again, and he's like, hey, I'm real close. I'm just getting gas at the local gas station. So he shows up a little bit late, about 15 minutes late. Not a huge deal, but the car looks like it's in perfect condition. In fact, it looks like he's run it through a car wash and cleaned the interior. Everything's looking great, so I'm excited. Everything went well. I help him get his bags out of my car and into his truck, and then he pauses and says, I gotta be straight up with you. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? So apparently what happened was he was turning onto a dirt road and he was going around a corner, something like that, and the car broke loose and slid into a bush. So I was like, okay, bush, that's not so bad. Apparently most of the damage was just to the clear coat on the passenger side. There was a bunch of scratches and stuff, but it was only as deep as the clear coat. So he actually took it to a body shop and got that fixed right off the bat, which was really nice of him. I appreciate that.
I mean, this guy lucked out, I think, by having a renter that just went ahead and fixed the damage and acknowledged it. I think that that's really lucky, because I've had a lot of people who return the car with just, like, it hasn't happened a lot, but it's happened a number of times where people return a car and they don't say anything, and then I go and check it in later in the day and it's completely damaged. I mean, I recently in the last few months had a guy who returned a car. He didn't say anything to me. He messaged me once he returned it saying, hey, Aubrey, the car's returned. I appreciate you allowing me to use your vehicle. And I went back to the car later that afternoon to check it in, and the car was destroyed. He had hit a pole. I guess he was either maybe drinking or he was texting. I don't know what he was doing, but he hit a pole. He continued to drive the car, and then he returned it like nothing had happened, and the car ended up being totaled. And so the fact that this guy's renter acknowledged his mistake and even tried to rectify it to an extent, I think is nice, and it is something that I, as a host, would definitely appreciate.
Then he showed me underneath the door, all along the passenger side door, there's all these scrapes and actually some deeper scarring and stuff into the metal of that piece right under the door. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but you'll see in the footage that there's some decently sized scrapes and scratches that you really can't buff out. That's going to need to be replaced.
So he's talking about his undercarriage damage, like I guess on the passenger side, almost like near the footwell area of the car. And I mean, there is scratches there and there is damage there. And I think that it is something where I am not saying that the damage isn't damage, because it absolutely is, but I just think that, in my opinion, like, this type of stuff is going to happen on Turo. Like, it's unavoidable, is because you're having people that are renting your cars, and it is almost guaranteed that they're not going to care about your car as much as you do. And so you have them taking your car, they're doing things like maybe driving too fast, not paying attention when they're parking. And things like damage on the bottom side skirt of the car, or damage to the tires, or damage to the wheels, like that damage is going to happen. And so often I have damage on cars where it's a scratch that's less than 3 inches, or it's a small scratch on the wheel, and I just have to let it go. And I think that if you are renting out a car that you don't feel comfortable just letting that go, you shouldn't be renting that car on Turo, is because people are going to damage your car. And that has seemed to be a pretty standard trend in these reaction videos, is these people rent out nice cars, they then get upset whenever they get damaged, but that's in the territory. I mean, that's just going to happen, and you have to accept it if you're going to rent out a nice car.
Then he showed me the passenger side headlight, also had a scratch on it. So I'm like, oh great, here we go. I was a little bit upset, I'll admit, but I was polite about it. I was like, hey, look, we're going to get this taken care of. You have insurance, I have insurance, we have insurance through the Turo app, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I have to say, I was impressed. I mean, he had a lot of integrity. I know how much it sucks to break something expensive that belongs to someone else, and it took a lot of balls to just come out and say it and be perfectly honest. So I appreciated that. The guy even gave me his business card, which has his work phone and where he works and everything like that. So I feel pretty good about this getting resolved. And I finally took it to the body shop and got a quote. This quote knocked my socks off. Because if you see the damage, I mean, yeah, it's damaged, and clearly that piece is going to need to be replaced, but the price on that quote was crazy. $2,642.
See, if I was this guy and this was my Porsche, this is what I would have done, is I would have taken it to a body shop and I would have got a quote. But what I probably would have done is I would have just sanded down the areas that it was damaged, and I would have painted over it. It's something that damage like that only looks really bad up very close. And an area, especially the side skirt of a car, like underneath, it's not something that's going to be highly visible, and it's something that is going to get damaged again. And so he talks about how the part needs to be replaced. And yeah, if you were to fix it to its 100%, like to make it 100% perfect again, that is how you would fix it. But if you're renting your car out on Turo, you don't need it to be 100% perfect. You just have to have it look good. And with something like this where it's purely cosmetic, I would have never paid the quote is for $2,642. I would have never paid that price. I would have sanded it down and painted it.
Now that's with replacing the headlight, and I don't know if I'm going to do that because the advisor did say that the scratch is shallow enough that it can probably just be buffed out. And the difference is $888. That's how much it would cost to replace it. And so if I don't get it replaced, which I probably won't because it seems like it'll be fine if it's just buffed out, then the total is $1,784. So in order to be a reasonable person, that's the price that I quoted the customer and told him that he was going to need to pay one way or another. Now, the only caveat is if something goes wrong in this whole payment process, then we're going to have an issue, and I'm going to have to go through Turo's system and see what needs to be done. I really hope I don't have to get into any kind of legal battle. I hope we can just write a check, get it taken care of, and no hard feelings.
Okay, so really there isn't a whole lot to say that I haven't already said about this video and this creator. I think that it was handled really well. I think that it really just stems down to the fact that he's renting out a high-end luxury vehicle on Turo, which is something that I continuously say that I don't think that you should do. Really quickly, I want to say what I would have done if I was in this guy's shoes. So even if I was renting out a Porsche, what I would have done if I would have seen that my car had this damage is I would have filed the claim. There are 2 ways to file a claim on Turo. You can file a claim directly with Turo, where Turo will handle it. They'll collect the money from the guest, and then they'll pay you the payout. Or you can file the claim directly with the guest and work with them personally. I personally never work with the guest. I used to earlier in my Turo career, but it caused more issues than it did solutions, and I've since only started filing my claims through Turo. This has made the experience, in my mind, quicker, easier, less painful, and just overall more efficient. So if I was him, I would have filed a claim through Turo. You have to file the claim within 24 hours, so that's what I would have done, and I would have just waited for Turo to give me the quote. Oftentimes, whenever you do these types of damage claims, you either have to submit a quote and get it fixed You either have to submit a quote and then send it to them, and then they will get back to you on whether that quote is justified, or they'll just send you a snap sheet, and this is what their offices have quoted how much this repair should cost. And from there, you kind of have two options. You can take it to a shop and you can repair it, or you can try to do it yourself. If it was me, especially because this is all just cosmetic damage, I would have buffed out the headlight, and I would have just, like I said earlier, sanded the side skirt and painted it, either with spray paint or touch-up paint. And you know, that's not the most professional way to go about doing it, but it would have made it look good. It would have been a nice, sustainable option, especially because chances are that side skirt's going to be damaged again. Another option, if you didn't want to buff out the headlight, was you could go on eBay and find a comparable headlight and replace it that way. But this is where I always say that it's so important that you do your own maintenance, or you at least understand the process of doing your own maintenance and repairs, because kind of issues like this is the perfect time where you can do your own repairs for cheaper, because it's all cosmetic. There's no safety issues. There's so many ways to repair it in a cost-effective way, and it really is an opportunity to turn these damage claims into a potential win for you as the host. And so keep that in mind going forward. But you know, all in all, this video, I don't have a whole lot to critique about it. I mean, he wasn't like overly complaining about it. I felt like he was a good sport about the damage. Hopefully his Porsche gets fixed and he's made whole again. And so I do wish this creator the best. But I probably am going to start doing these sort of reaction videos every few weeks, maybe once a month, because I do think that it provides some valuable insights on what can happen if you rent out a car on Turo from different perspectives other than myself. And I like to hear what other people think, what other people are going through, and of course provide my feedback and criticism on that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.